Welcome back to my Penguin of the Month series, where I teach beginner mixing and watercolor techniques. These are the Penguins of the Month I've done so far: January, February, March, April, it's probably my favorite one, May, that little baby penguin, and then today we're going to paint June. This reference photo by Gaku Suyama on Unsplash is perfect for this. The materials today are 3 Da Vinci mixing colors: Red Rose Deep, Aero Light Yellow FGL, and Phthalo Blue. A Fabriano Artistico 100% cotton 140-pound block of cold pressed paper in 5x7. And these brushes. I used Escoda Perla No. 1, Princeton Heritage Round 4, 8, and 12, and a small Rosemary & Co. Eradicator brush. The outline for our painting can be found on my Patreon channel. The link will be in the description. It is free to all members. If you're new to Penguin of the Month, go back to my other Penguin of the Month videos to hear about which supplies I'm using for every video, which would include the Fabriano Artistico cold pressed block in 5x7. I made myself a new white plate with new paint because my last painting I used a lot of pigment and I don't want to just wipe that off and get rid of it. So I'm going to save it for another painting, probably one that has a lot of green in it. So what we do in Penguin of the Month is learn how to mix 3 primary colors. This is Aero Light Yellow FGL, which is PY97. This is Red Rose Deep. It's the same as Quinacridone Rose, which is PV19. And then this is Phthalo Blue, same as Phthalo Blue, PV15 colon. I don't know what the colon means, but that's what it says on the tube. So today we're going to paint this swimming penguin, and I'm going to be mixing all of the colors we need for this painting with these 3 colors and nothing else. So for this I have a No. 12 Princeton Heritage. I'm going to wet the whole paper and I'm going to do the water. I'm going to wet all around the penguin and everything. And wetting the paper first is a technique called wet and wet, where we put paint on wet paper. And the reason for doing that is so that you will get nice, pretty, smooth blends and soft edges. We're going to be practicing that technique a lot today. So now I'm going to get some of the Phthalo Blue. You see how very, very bright it is? Well, it isn't that bright in the photo. So I'm going to get a little bit of it out, add some water to lighten it up, and try to get it out of the brush and rinse the brush out. And I'm going to add a tiny bit of red, and that will gray it down. I'm going to get a little bit more red. And you see how that just made it sort of more of a royal blue compared to the phthalo blue. Do you see the difference? And then if you wanted to green it up a little, you would add a little bit of yellow. I'm going to get the teeniest little bit of yellow. And now we have that watercolor, the color of the water that's on the penguin painting. So I'm going to now check the glistening. And it is glistening but not moving around in puddles. So do a little test. If it moves slowly, it's probably ready. So I'm going to put this all around the penguin. And I am going to let it go onto the penguin's body. Because the penguin is in the water, it's tinged a little bit differently, the body of the penguin is. So we're going to just paint what we see. I am going to stay away from the whitest whites. So let me double check on the reference photo. So this, now with a damp brush, I've rinsed it off and I've gotten most of the water out of the brush and it's just damp, and I'm going to lift that out. Just get it all the water out and soften or lift out anything that you don't want to be the watercolor, the color of the water. So this is actually pretty white, so I'm not going to go in there. This is dark, so I'm going to get that blue. This is pretty blue. It has like a blue tinge to it inside the wing. I did not trace on the little tag that's on the wing. So I just went right over the tag when I did the tracing. And then this is white, this is dark, and this is dark, so it's safe to go over those, I guess is what I'm getting at. And then the beak, I'm just going to leave the beak and the eye alone because they're not blue, they're more of a tan. So I'm going to leave those alone. Now I'm going to get some more blue, some more phthalo blue, and while this is still wet, I'm going to vary the colors of blue that are in the water. So I'm going to make it a little more interesting than the photo. I'm going to go right over the belly. This belly has some shadow on it, and also going over it with some more blues will give it more contour, make it look more round. I'm going to put a little bit of red right up here, and it can turn more purpley blue. Red Rose Deep is not really a red, it's more of a quinacridone, it's more of a pink than it is red. We add yellow to it to make it red. Let's see, now I'm going to do a little bit more up here. And I think I'm going to let this dry. Maybe I'll put a little bit more of the pink right down here, just for interest. Okay, so that's what you do in wet and wet. You can, while the paper is still wet, you can do things to it. If it starts to get a little bit dry, you need to stop and dry it, and then you can do wet on wet again. I dried the penguin off with a dryer. I have this dryer. I want to mention that it's called a mini hot air gun, and it's only 350 watts, and that's for drying crafts. Don't get the one that's for electricians. It's going to be way too hot. Okay, so I'm going to use my number 4. This is the number 4 Princeton Heritage, and I'm going to make a dark. I just like to call that a dark. I don't call it black because it's really just a mix of the 3 colors that is a dark. So I'm going to mix the colors that we need for the black part of the penguin. I'm going to make a purple. I'm going to get a blob of red Rose Deep, put it in the middle. I'm going to use some water to make it blend. I want it to be pretty pigmented, so I'm going to try not to add a lot of water to this. And instead of rinsing off, I'm going to be careful and just grab a blob of blue. This is why I like to use fresh paint, because it's so easy to mix with it. And you see how that is almost instantly dark. It's a very, very dark blue. See? I'm going to try to make it more purple. I'm going to get some red. I'm going to need water just to make it move. Okay, so now it's got a lot of red and a lot of blue. I'm going to get a little bit of yellow. I need more water. I'm actually going to rinse because I don't want to keep contaminating that yellow. I'm going to get this off of here and add it to here. I can tell that it's kind of turning green. I don't know if you can tell from where you are through the camera, so I'm going to add a little more red. Okay, now it's truly a purple. I'm going to get a nice blob of yellow. It started turning green there for a second, and then I added the rest of this pigment, And now we've got a really good dark. I'm going to get some water, and you can see how it's not quite black, is it? But in a more pigmented swatch, it looks black, doesn't it? And this is like the perfect color for the top of this penguin. So when you're starting out mixing, it's going to take you a few tries. Go back and forth between the three colors until you get what you want. It takes a lot of practice. I am going to now wet the head, the top of the head. I'm not going to wet the little jaggedy things. I'm going to do that with dry paint on dry paper. I'm going to go around the wing, and we're going to do some more wet and wet practice. So I'm only wetting this dark part of the penguin. I'm not wetting these little fringy things. I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so I have just this area wet. I'm going to get some of the black, the dark, and go along the line that I drew and let the water take it. This is what happens to me. I don't know if it happens to you. When I press too hard when I'm doing the tracing, I get a dent in the paper. It's not really noticeable, but I know it's there. Isn't this fun? You get a lot of pigment on your brush. It isn't watery pigment. See how it doesn't really move back? It's more like a half and half creamer. And having this blue underneath is making it look a little bit more shimmery. And then the water kind of does the work for you. It makes it move around. It looks natural. And a little more here by the wing, the flipper. It just kind of buys you some time. When you want to add more, you can just tap it in. We don't want it to be completely black. We want this little bit of blue to show through. And now I'm going to get my little brush. I'm going to get my little number 1. I'm going to get some paint on it, and I'm going to do some little flicks all around the edge of this shape. And then out here. Start on the inside, start in here and drag it out. I think I want to put just a little more in here. And I'm going to leave that like that because it kind of looks like that in the photo. And now we can go to a place that it isn't touching this. We don't have to dry everything every time we do it. We can go to a spot in the painting that isn't touching this shape. So we can go down to this dark shape. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wet the inside of it. Okay, this has to go like that. Okay, I'm going to get the pigment and let it do the work. You just drop it in and it moves. It's a lot of moisture in here, so you can just dab off your brush and then move it around again inside the shape, and it'll It'll be absorbed into the brush, like the brush kind of sucks it up. Now I want this to come out and around to the foot, like that. Okay, let's do our little flicks. Get a little brush, a little skinny one. Get some paint on it, and now we're going to flick the edges of this onto dry paper. We just want an irregular edge. We don't have to make it like fur, because penguins don't have fur. We just want it to not look perfectly straight. Okay, and then we can do the face, because the face isn't touching that or that. I'm going to keep my little brush, my little number 1, and I'm going to fill in this little patch. Get some more water on the brush. It's a little too dark. I'm going to go around the eye. Around the beak. Okay. Now this dark comes up and around the top of the eye. And then there's a little patch under the eye. Okay, I went a little bit closer to the edge of the eye, and I'm going to leave the rest of that like that. I'm going to go try to get this line covered. And now I'm going to do my little flicks. Okay, so we got most of the penguin done without having to dry it. I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and then we'll continue. Okay, now on the beak, everything's dry, and I'm going to do the beak. I'm just going to do a little bit of phthalo blue. Let's see, right, I guess I didn't put a line there. There's a line right where this bends, and it goes out to my right and then in. So I'm going to do some phthalo blue on there. And then this comes in like that. I guess I didn't mark this as well as I thought I did. And that goes like that. And then the tip of it is black, so I'm going to put blue under the black. Okay, I'm going to get a little tiny brush. I have a 2-0. It's like a -2, or a 2 minus -2, I guess. Now I'm going to do the tan color. First, let me mix the tan color. I'll use my number 1 to do the mixing for that. I'm going to get some yellow. I'm going to get some pink. And that made us a red, or more of an orange. More water will let it mix better. And I'm going to get a tiny bit of blue to get a tan color. And that color looks, I think it needs a little more pink. And then we need a very, very, very light value of that. It's more like we need it to be like a beige color. That's not really beige, that's too warm. I'm gonna get a little more blue. A little more blue. Oh man, I wasn't watching what I was doing. All right, I'm gonna try that over here. We all mess up. Please don't be mad. If you mess up if you mess yourself up, don't be mad at yourself. I know, easier said. Okay, I'm gonna get this very, very light value of this color and put it on this beak. I'm gonna go above the eye too. Okay, now we've got the blue and the red, not red, the tan on the beak. I'm gonna let that dry. And then to fill in the eye, I'm just gonna get a solid value of our dark that we mixed. And I'm gonna put the eyeball in. I was gonna use my 2-0, but I guess I forgot about it. Okay, and now I'm gonna do, this is all dry so we can do the little wing. I'm gonna use the number 1 again. Now this is tricky because there's a light value. Let me get the blue. I'm gonna put this blue in here. If you get it on there dark, just get some water on your brush and then just spread it out. And this blue kind of comes down here like that. And then with the damp brush, I soften that line. And I'm gonna get some of this almost dark and put along the top. And I'm gonna let that damp paper move that color around a little bit. It's gotta be just enough different from the body so that it stands out as a wing. Now I'm gonna get a little bit of the dark and put it in here. Okay, and now I can get more dark and do this. Okay, now I'm going to do the little flicks. There's some little specks inside this flipper. I'm going to take this dark and I'm going to go around the edge. Okay, let's do the feet. You don't have to worry about separating toes from toes. You can just paint it as one shape. I'm going to get it wet. You can see a toenail here, and you can see a toenail here. And then I think there's a toenail right up here that I didn't get drawn on. So let's get the dark. Get our little flicks. There's actually quite a few. Here's a toe and there's a toenail. Here's a toe and here's a toenail. And that's good enough for anyone to wonder what this is. It's obviously their feet. Now when this dries, we could go through and do like a darker area right here just to show a little bit of variation. And then right here, I'm going to just drop in some clean water because I see some texture there. I don't really know what it is. It's like the front of the foot is wrinkled and stuff. So, but it's bent straight, so it's all stretched out. So just put a little bit of, I'm going to put a little bit of orange on that. Okay, I think the beak is probably dry. I'm going to zoom in so you can do the beak. You can see what I'm doing. Okay, the top of the beak is a pretty big shape. And it comes in and up. And then this comes down that, and then under it is black. I'm struggling with my lines too. They're dented into the paper, so just do your best. It's not going to matter. It'll be fine. Okay, I don't love that. I'm going to use a special brush to get the shape of this beak done correctly. I'm just going to add a little bit more to the top right here so that it's not straight lines, kind of like the idea that we did here, little flicks on the beak because it isn't solid. And now, so that is just the tan color. I'm going to dry this. I have a Rosemary & Co. It's called a Rosemary & Co. Eradicator brush, size small. This is how they look when you buy them. I did this to mine. I cut off the sides because I wanted one that was just a little bit smaller than this. You get it wet, and then you scooch it along where you want to lift paint. And I want to fix the shape of this beak because I went a little too far out of the lines with the dark. And you just have to touch it very gently. You don't have to scrub at all. And there, the beak is fixed. You can also use it to get rid of lines. Like maybe I want to minimize this line. You might be able to kind of erase it. I don't think it's going to work because I pressed too hard when I did the drawing. But you see how it picked up that white, the blue, and made that white? So I think what I'm going to do to kind of disguise that is I'm going to wet just down here. I'm going to use my bigger brush and only wet the outside of the penguin up to the line of the belly. And I'm going to make the water a little darker down here. Let's get a little red, a little bit of blue, a little more blue, a little more water, and I'm going to kind of go right up to the line. Maybe right here too. And now I'm going to, so that it doesn't look like, oh, this is dark and that's light, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to wet all of this right up to that where I stopped with the water underneath. I'm going to wet the whole thing. You can even go over the body and see how this is bleeding out a little bit. It makes it part of the landscape instead of like a puzzle piece. It also offers, you know, a little bit of movement. I think this is really pretty. I really like this. Now I can add a little bit of the darkness, this color up here, and it will be more unified, be more balanced. Okay, and then we also won't have a hard line between here where we stopped and here. So everything's wet again except for the penguin. Just gonna fix this a little bit. And I'm gonna let that dry. While I'm waiting for this to dry, I wanna show you a little trick. This is now gonna be my Penguin of the Month plate, so I won't have these problems happening between paintings. So this will be my dedicated Penguin of the Month. So what I'm gonna do to these blobs, because they're gonna dry kind of hard, I'm gonna spread them out so that they're kind of more flat on the plate. And that way, when they dry, they're easier to reconstitute when I want to use them. Kind of like frosting a cake. Just spread them out a little and they won't become such big hard knobs of paint that are impossible to make useful. Okay, just spread that blue out, and you're gonna find that you don't use anywhere near as much blue as you do yellow and red, because phthalo blue is super intense. A little bit goes a long way. Okay, so I'm gonna put that plate away and dry off our penguin. I hope that you enjoyed this 6th Penguin of the Month for May. There's enough space here for you to write a month or to write a greeting. You can make this into a card. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.